Gdje je čovjeku početak, a gdje je kraj? Ako je početak u središtu tijela, je li kraj na periferiji, na koži? Ili na granici ljudske svijesti? Ili pak na nekom nevidljivom energetskom omotaču tijela? Ako se krene izvana prema unutra, pitanje je još teže. Prije ili kasnije naići ćemo na mnogobrojne nevidljive mentalne koncepte, programe, podprograme koje nam nameću predodžbu stvarnosti, vezuju nas uz prošlost i tako otežavaju sadašnjost i kreiranje budućnosti. Danas ipak možemo otvoriti vrata kroz koja ćemo ući u novu paradigmu života. Ken Page, autor nekoliko poznatih knjiga, bio je klinički hipnoterapeut 20 godina. Na temelju tog iskustva stvorio je tehniku Heart and Soul Healing, koja identificira energetske uzroke fizičkog tijela. Koristeći te uzorke da se dopre do podsvjesnog uma, emocionalni, fizički, mentalni i duhovni uzroci oslobađaju se iz naše prošlosti. Ta i druga pitanja o prirodi čovjeka postavit ćemo ovdje, na rubu znanosti. Dobro večer. Ken Page, koautor je tehnike iscjeljivanja srca i duše, američki iscjeljitelj, pisac i govornik. Dobro večer.
Thank you for having me.
Teško je naći početak kada se zapravo netko našao u materiji kojom se vi bavite, ali recimo ako preskočimo onaj davni i rani dio vašeg života dok ste se bavili svakodnevnim stvarima u poslu, u vašoj biografiji spominje se da ste se dosta dugo bavili hipnoterapijom. Što vam je ona otkrila i na koji način uopće ona funkcionira?
Well, I was studying with this man who was a hypnotherapist back in the 80s, and I would watch him have them go through everything they experienced, okay? Even if it was traumatic, okay? And you'd see them, convulsing and going through that. And I realized that they didn't have to do that, okay? But I had to watch 200-300 people do that before I started saying, is there a better way? So I started looking at what is it we're looking for. We're actually looking for, so within an emotion, our subconscious is a giant lake of emotions. There's one that triggers everything. So if you can find that one emotion, all this becomes a strength and it empowers them. Then I started realizing there was a part of them watching themselves. So if you could go to that and put them in that place of watching, they wouldn't have the traumatic experiences and possibly re-traumatizing their body.
Mm-hmm. Drugim riječima, te regresije su u stvari služile da se nađe ta jedna problematična emocija u moru onih koje inače čovjeka ne smetaju.
Yes, but what I realized was you're actually wearing it. You're wearing the pattern on your body, somewhere your throat, your chest, your head. And if you can follow that pattern, it would take you back to that emotional trauma.
Uh-huh. Na koji način se može prepoznati taj uzorak, taj put koji vodi od od neke vanjske manifestacije na tijelu do unutrašnje emocionalne traume?
Well, first of all, you need to look at your life and see where there were traumas, okay? Like a car accident or a death or something that was really traumatic. But it'll usually be behind the event. So there's a car accident, but you had an emotion before the car accident, and that's the one you can't find. So if you can just lay out all the things and look at what was behind those events, you'll start to become clear to you. And what was your mother's experiences and your father's experiences, and it starts to make it easier for you.
No teško je pronaći baš sva traumatična iskustva, mnogih se možda uopće ne sjećamo, možda stižu iz vremena dok smo još bili u utrobi majke ili smo tek imali godinu, dvije i slično. Što u takvim slučajevima, s obzirom da je više vjerojatno da se nećemo sjetiti najvećih traumi svog života nego da ćemo se sjetiti.
Well, that's true, but if you're like my parents, they were in part of the war, okay? So I know they had those memories with them. I was in the when my mother was pregnant, I was there with those memories. So I have to realize that my father had anger, my father had a drinking problem, my father was mean. Those patterns are probably with me. And if I get triggered, they're going to become intensified. And it's just like my mother's would, whatever her patterns. So the more you know, the better it is for you.
Kako gledate na odnos između svijesti koju doživljavamo kao individualnu i one nekakve univerzalne matrice koje bismo mogli nazvati kolektivnom sviješću, s obzirom da nitko od nas nije izoliran od svega drugoga, pa pretpostavljam da bismo i mnoge traume mogli tražiti na širem planu.
Yeah, but just think about it. What are the traumas in your country? What happened at different times in history that there could be residual with you today or with your country or with the area, okay? And that is a consciousness. Just like, so when we started looking at this 20, 30 years ago, there was nothing written about it. And then all of a sudden I became aware of a collective consciousness of cancer. Well, it just, all my reality changed. Is there such a thing? Is there an energy of cancer? And what does it want with us? Or what does it want? You know? So that became I became so interested in finding the truth to that, if there is ever a truth, that's where it led me into that direction.
Na koji način ste postali, recimo, svjesni kolektivnih obrazaca određenih stvari? Spomenuli ste kolektivni obrazac raka.
Well, every single person that comes to me has the ability to free a little of that energy or change it. Just think about it. If you took your energy away from something you weren't conscious of, would it change? So that's where I started looking. So by freeing that from the individual, it gives them a sense of being more calm or not having to look for something or not always searching. It makes them more peaceful.
Danas postoji na svijetu dosta tehnika koje su nekako shvatile da se problemi kriju u podsvijesti, a ne u svijesti. Znači u svemu onom što smo percipirali, a da možda nismo bili niti svjesni. Takva dijagnoza je točna, ali ne pomaže puno, s obzirom da je podsvijest, recimo da se statistički izrazim, 99% naše svijesti, dok bi ovaj svjesni dio bio 1%. Na koji način se uopće vi ili netko drugi može snaći u tom ogromnom području?
Well, and to even make it more challenging, we have the four parts that have to become aware, the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. In most cases, we find the spiritual part is where we're not aware of, because it's a bigger picture. We're used to this picture, but the spiritual has the ability to overlook it all. So by being aware of all four parts, it will change. If one's missing, that will still continue to attract that kind of energy to you.
Vaša tehnika se zove iscjeljivanje srca i duše. Kako se iscjeljuje srce i duša zapravo?
Well, first of all, it's quite challenging if you think about it. So what happened when you first fell in love? Well, all of us, it was the deepest and most special thing we all felt, right? But eventually we made love. Then what happened? We were going heart to heart with that person. We were going down to the base chakra and then back up to the heart, and we started looping with them. And then we had issues with male and female issues with them, and then we started looping. And then we had power and control issues, and we started looping. Most people loop in their body, so most people are not open because they don't want to be hurt. They protect themselves, or they don't want to love in the way that they used to love, or the way they used to get in all the problems.
Ponekad je lakše reći ili poželjeti da se čovjek otvori nego to učiniti. To nekako ne ide fizičkim naporom, ponekad nije dovoljno samo impuls želje ili volje, nego nešto i više od toga. Što se konkretno zbiva na vašim tretmanima i sessionima?
Well, what we really want to do is we want to have people open up inwardly, okay? Because once they can trust being open inside, then they can start to gradually open outwardly. But see, what we're taught everywhere is we open outwardly, and most people get overwhelmed by projections or energy or different things, how people are holding them. So by first changing their energy and helping them to become lighter or less reactive, and by helping them to find what emotions they're still holding on to, starts to make it easier for them to trust their own self.
U vašoj knjizi The Way It Works dotičete se nekoliko raznih područja koja inače su teme za sebe i mogli bi se pričati o njima u daleko opširnijem smislu. No, prođemo na trenutak kroz njih. Spominjete recimo lucidne snove. Kakva je njihova uloga, namjena i što se uopće može s njima korisno napraviti u smislu iscijeljivanja srca i duše?
Well, first of all, what if you could work out 50% of your issues in your dream state? Well, it would sure be a lot easier than in your physical state because it's going to take you a lot longer and it's going to involve a lot more people. It's going to cost you a lot. So I started lucid dreaming, and in this technique, it only took me about a week to get an answer. So I wanted to be, in my own mind, I wanted to be a good healer, okay? And what I found in my subconscious, that it felt if I was a good healer, I would lose my freedom. Well, where did it get that program? I never knew that, but it was sabotaging me trying to be what I wanted because it was afraid I was lose my freedoms. Well, that's the kind of program you want to know in your life if there's something not with what your intention is.
Mm-hmm. Što ste učinili po tom pitanju ili je dovoljno samo shvatiti gdje problem leži?
Just when you realize it and recognize it, okay? And so if my subconscious in some way was afraid I'd lose my freedom, then when I go out, I wear a cap and I nobody would ever recognize me, and now there's no problem. So I just did something physically to counter what was subconscious until it just became no longer a problem or an issue for me.
U zadnjih 10-15 godina sve češće se spominje pinealna žlijezda, jedna žlijezda koju se do prije nekoliko desetljeća smatralo nekakvim slijepim crijevom ili otpatkom evolucije. Međutim, ona se sve više obznanjuje u svom značaju. Bilo bi dobro ponešto reći o tome gdje se ona nalazi i čemu po vašem mišljenju služi.
Yeah, it's right between the eyes and right above the ears and the center of the head. And if you put your focus there, what it allows you to do is to develop subtle senses. So you want to sense something, but then make a decision whether you want to feel it. There's so many things people are feeling now they don't need to, and it takes their energy. Think about this. You get on a crowded bus, and you're standing room only, and this person is sad, and this person is getting a divorce, this person is losing all their money. What do you want to feel? None of that. But you want to sense it, so you can be in communication with your own higher self. But there's so many things. So we do not feel about 98% of things out there because we've felt them before and no need to affect our body.
Postoji jedna svakodnevna stvar koju svatko od nas nehotice namjerno u većoj ili manjoj mjeri radi. To je laganje. U knjizi ste se dotaknuli i laganja i određene statistike iz novina koja je pokazala na temelju jednog istraživanja u kojem nevjerojatno velikom postotku zapravo ljudi svakodnevno izgovaraju veće, manje laži. Pa u kojoj mjeri se to zapravo događa i u kojoj mjeri to i na koji način čini štetu ili što već mislite o toj tako raširenoj djelatnosti?
Well, this was a study done at the University of Virginia with university students. So every time they lied, they wrote it down, okay? And this is with the statistics. But in some of it made sense, like this one about how often do you lie to strangers? And it was like 70-some%. Well, that makes sense because you don't want to get involved. Then it started getting to be more personal. So how often do you lie to acquaintances? And at 48%, but you can kind of realize, you go to Christmas, you want to tell everybody your business or you put it off. But what really started upsetting me is how often do you lie to your best friend? Well, that was 28%. So is that really your best friend? And then the one that upset me the most was how often do you lie to your lover or in relationship? And that was 34%. And so when you lie, you have to energetically put up something so they can't feel it. You just have to. And so if you're sensitive, it's like something's pushing on you. And we don't figure out what it is for a long time. And then I started realizing the other one was, how often do your kids lie to you that are going to college? And that was over 48%. So if you think about it, you just had a conversation with somebody and there's a part of you going, what just happened? None of that made sense, because you have to just keep covering every lie and it starts to affect you and your intuitiveness.
Moraš se zapitati kad s nekim razgovaraš koliki postotak istine si u stvari čuo u svakodnevnom životu na temelju ovih statistika. Drugim riječima, možda to čak može zvučati brutalno, ali shvatio sam da predlažete nevjerojatnu stvar, a to je da se govori istina.
You want me to speak the truth about what I just said?
Htio sam reći da, naravno da je drugim riječima odgovor da bi trebalo stalno govoriti istinu. Međutim, te laži su neki zaštitni mehanizam, od čega se u stvari štitimo?
Well, it's from judgment. And so many different countries are very jealous and they judge. So if you're not other people's expectations or how they want you, they'll judge you or they won't be your friend. But if we really look at it, are they our friend? Can we really trust them, or how far can we go? And it's the same way with relationships. How open can we be? And I think so Nancy and I do the best we can to be truthful. But we don't want to be brutal or hurt anybody, so we just don't say everything, but we don't lie either. We just, we try to be... Because remember, if you lie, I got to remember the lie. And once I met this man, and everything he said was a lie. And he was a medical doctor, okay? And so he had the credentials where you wouldn't think he necessarily would be a liar. But everything he said was a lie. But he could remember it. How much energy does it take to remember all your lies? And why do that? Okay?
Danas je već dosta poznato i prepoznato da je strah ono što zapravo sputava ljude da bi se našli tamo gdje možda žele ili da bi im se nekakva vratašca otvorila koja bi ih odvela negdje. Jedan od strahova koji se rijetko kada prepoznaje, kojeg spominjate, jest strah od društva. Što bi to bio strah od društva, kako se on manifestira i kako ga uopće nadvladati? Na što mislite kad kažete društvo?
Well, again, what are the fears that are in your area or your region? What are they worried about? Are they a fear of money, or a fear of relationships, or a fear of their children not being with them? What is that fear? And that holds people in a fear, okay? So whatever's going on around in your relationship or at work, the different things that don't feel good or are very controlling usually will become a fear, okay? And remember, I think no one wants you to take your power. No one, okay? If you took your power, could they control you? Would they know what was going to happen with you? Would you do something that they weren't ready for? So everybody wants to keep you in a certain place, okay, as they know you.
Na koji način ljudi drugim ljudima ili društvo drugim ljudima oduzima ovo što ste nazvali moć?
Well, by judging you or by not allowing you to be creative. So you are more powerful when you're creative. So if you do something you really love, that's when you're in the flow, that's when you feel good, that's when you take your own power. But again, if I did that, I wouldn't want other people to judge it. I wouldn't want them to look at it and say, oh, that's not very good, or you could have done that better. You got to be in your own power, okay, and not care about what other people think or how you're going to fit into whatever world we fit into.
Kada bi se bilo koga na ulici pitalo želi li se on odreći u svom životu energije, moći koju ste spominjali, ljubavi ili bilo čega trećeg, on bi naravno rekao apsolutno ne. Međutim, konstatirali ste da većina ljudi zapravo se sami od sebe odriče ne samo moći, već ljubavi, energije i slično. Možete li to malo objasniti?
Well, just think about it when we're younger. Again, we start taking our power, and then all of a sudden we get hurt by it. Okay, because we're exposed. People can judge us more, so we take it in, and then all of a sudden let's say we fall in love, or we have somebody we care for. We give that power to them, and then they use it against us. So most people, and when I say most people, our average says 90% of people are afraid to take their power. So apparently their history, their past, their upbringing, their relationships, their work has never wanted them to be powerful.
Postoji jedna iluzija u većini nas da nekakve odluke ili želje donosimo sami ili da sami radimo planove, međutim u tu formulu često puta nismo uključili svijest o mnogobrojnim mentalnim i podsvjesnim konceptima, programima, podprogramima, navikama. Na kraju krajeva cijeli naš način života jest neki program od društva u kojem smo rođeni, roditelja, navika, ukusa i slično. Na koji način se mogu raspoznati ti svi osjećaji za koje vi u knjizi zovete osjećajima koji ne pripadaju zapravo osobi? I što ostane kada se svi oni maknu?
Well, it's usually quietness or being still. And we wouldn't think that's very much, but if you look at the Buddhist or you look at the different cultures that have you study for many years to have a quiet mind, they apparently find that the essence of power, because it's in that knowing, in that quiet place that there's nothing outside you. You are everything. So I think being able to develop that and find ways of quieting your mind and understand what has happened to you throughout your life. Okay. It's a little story. When I was a little guy, okay, me and my friend were outside playing and it was raining and we were in the rain, okay, and the teacher had to come get us. Well, that was on a Friday. On Monday, the teacher told me he drowned, okay. So I associated playing in water and drowning, okay. And then at 8, my friend and I were playing in the creek and he got polio. And he died. So I thought if playing would kill you. So that's a program. But I didn't realize it until I was 35 or 40. But there it was. Every time I'd be happy, I tried to stop it because I was afraid somebody would hurt or somebody would die. And that's just not realistic, but that was what I saw.
To je istina, kad god nešto u životu krene dobro, zapravo se mi svi pomalo osjećamo kao da je to nešto privremeno, nešto čak pomalo neprirodno, da stvari idu glatko i da nema nikakvih problema. Međutim, što vi mislite, je li je ili nije?
Well, I don't think it's natural, but what happens is we're always preparing for something to happen. So it's like a part of us is always waiting for something to go wrong or something to change, okay? And that's not natural. It's part of our past, maybe, by things we have seen. Every time we've been happy, something was sabotaged or it wasn't what we thought, but it isn't really our nature inside us. But again, that's the more you're creative, the more you do things you love, the more you're physical, the quieter and easier things will get for you.
No, kad nam je loše, onda nekako ne očekujemo i ne razmišljamo o tome da će nam ubrzo biti dobro.
Well, yes, but what happens is, let's say this is where we are right here in the moment, okay? All of a sudden something comes up and you're thrown to the past. Are you in the moment anymore? No, you're back here. What do? You start pulling yourself back into the past. What do? We attract a new person to reflect an old issue. And that's the way it appears people do. They keep attracting their past in people so they'll understand themselves better. But at some point, do you have to do that anymore? I know what my issues are. I know my issues are power and control. I know my issues are being abandoned. I know my issues are being betrayed. So do I have to keep having it in my face, or can I recognize it and not give energy to it?
Na koji način ljudi primaju ili doživljavaju ljubav, recimo unutar neurolingvističnog programiranja? Navedene su nekakva 3 različita načina općenito. Koji bi oni bili?
Well, visual, okay, and auditory, we hear, we see, we hear, and we feel. Most people, and I'm talking about the world as we have seen it, don't trust their feelings, because their feelings could take them into places that could hurt them, or they can't control it, or it would take them into some place that would make them feel bad. So understanding what modality you are, but understand this, we think love is one of the most challenging words for all of us. Because you think about it, how do I know how to love more than I've been loved? So my family didn't love me when I was born. So is that a challenge? Yes. And my relationships didn't love me. They wanted me to be something else. They wanted me to be what they wanted me to be, not who I was. So all of a sudden, I don't trust love. And most people say they're protecting themselves from it so they won't get hurt again like they did in the past.
Spomenuli ste da je prvi od modaliteta vizualni, na koji način se zapravo doživljavaju stvari ili doživljava ljubav. Koji su druga dva?
Auditory, here. So most men are visual, okay? So we will go out and we will do the yard and we'll do the car and we'll do this, and that shows my wife I love her. Okay, I go to work, I bring home money, that shows her I love her. But what she wants is to hear it. She wants to hear I love you. No. And then again, kinesthetic is what everyone's working on. Okay, can you really trust your own feelings and perceive it? When somebody says something, can you trust that in your own self?
Na koji način u konačnici kada netko dođe kod vas iseljivati srce i dušu, kao što se i zove naziv tog tretmana, kako se to u stvari radi? Što se zbiva?
Well, when they come, I ask them, why are you here? What's your issue? And then I ask them, do you know what I do? And most people don't, because somebody told them to come see me. You know? And so then I say, what if I could help you release old emotions? And most people say, yeah, I don't need them anymore, right? And what we started to find is some of these emotions were not theirs. They were their mother's emotions as a little child, or their father's emotions, or brothers, sisters, or lovers, or people at work. And we started becoming those emotions. So those emotions are easier to release. Okay? And once you release them, it becomes not so reactive and quieter, or more choices. Okay? So we do that. And of course, release the energy or the consciousness that they have been in. We release any part of them that is connected to another person. Like, what if I was little, I was a part of my mother trying to understand myself, but I never released her, or she never released me, so we work on that part, okay? And then we look for any program that's playing out that's not productive today. Like, it's not safe to love, not safe to take your power, you have to hide, it's not safe to be happy. Or, what if I hurt myself so no one else hurts me? So there's all kinds of programs. We then get them to find out and see the truth, that that's not the truth. They don't have to worry about being happy. They can be happy their way, not the way other people tell them, but their way.
Na koji način zapravo otkrivate te tuđe emocije, stare programe i slično? Kako ih detektirate? Kako ih osoba detektira? Kako i vi omogućite da ih prepozna?
Well, at the end, let's say we release some of the emotions that aren't theirs. That's gone, so it makes it clear for you. Then we release the consciousness or the energy around you. That makes it clear for you. Then we release your parents and people around you. That makes it clear for you. Then we look for any program that's not proper. That makes it, again, clear for you. And then we start to realize, again, why did you come here? So here's a big question. Are we evolving, or are we accidents? Okay. Well, most people would think they're an accident, but hopefully we're evolving. We know our physical body's not evolving, but maybe our spiritual body. So let's say you came in to Earth to love. That was why you came in. I want to love, I want to be happy, I want to be productive, I want to be creative. But what you found was hurt and fear and sadness and confusion and distortion. What did your subconscious mind say? I have to create that to have love. I have to create distortion, and I have to be chaotic. I have to hurt myself to have love. We want to be sure those programs are not set. And once they become aware of it, they say, that doesn't make any sense. Okay? First of all, it doesn't make any sense for you to be 15 anymore. It doesn't make any sense for me to be 10 anymore. And so once you realize it, it starts to change things.
Koja je veza između tih podsvjesnih programa, mentalnih koncepata i bolesti? Očigledno je da ona postoji, s druge strane očigledno i nije sve prevladavajuće jer svi ljudi nose neke podprograme i programe, pa eto, većina ljudi su ipak na određeni način spadaju u kategoriju zdravih. Dakle, mislimo na one koji normalno funkcioniraju. Koliko zapravo tijelo može podnositi i spremno je nekako pružati otpor svim tim programima i negativnim stvarima prije nego što pošalje upozorenje u vidu bolesti?
Well, what happens if you think about it, I think Deepak Chopra put it best, okay? They did this scientific study, okay? And how many thoughts do you have every day? Okay, and what they found is the average person has 60,000 thoughts a day. 90% are thoughts of yesterday. So is that a thought that's not in time? It says, I should have done this, I could have done this, I would have done this. Is that old energy? And if you take on the number of days you are, and number of years you are, we could have hundreds of millions of energy or programs inside us. Now, pretty soon, that energy becomes harder or more dense or more solid, and I believe that's where disease could grow or evolve or become a part of us. That's what we found. And here's another one. We find sadness we find it everywhere. How sad people are. If you've been sad your whole life, how does that affect your energy?
Koliko su sada knjiga napisali na te teme?
My wife and I think we got about 9.
Yeah. Koju smatrate najboljom?
Well, this book here we had to write just because a lot of people in the region you guys are in, cannot trust anything inside. If I ask you a question, I ask a question to somebody, what do you think about this, or what are you sensing? They say, I don't feel anything, I can't see anything, I can't hear anything. So we had to start finding a way to work with that. And that's where it took us into this whole thing about old energy or old emotions and how to release some of it and how to make a person feel better. And feeling better is simple. When we help somebody, we just make it easier for them not to be so reactive. Because if we made a big change, if it was possible to make a big change, then they wouldn't know who they were, or their family would not like them or be scared of them. So we have to make gradual changes, but their awareness continues to evolve, okay? And now, when I first did this, people could only stay clear for about 7 days. And then they got back into the old energy. And then after they came back to see me again, they become clear for a month. Then they started recognizing who was the person triggering them and who was really upsetting them. And then when they realized it, they started to change those dynamics. Okay? I can only give so much energy to somebody. What you have to be careful of is they don't keep taking all of your energy.
Kada pričate o potrebi da se otpuštaju te stvari, pretpostavljam da mnogi ljudi se naravno slože s time i kažu da, otvorit ćemo se mi sada, otpustimo sve što me smeta. Međutim, pitanje je u kojoj mjeri zapravo se iznutra mogu otvoriti ili slično. Drugim riječima, što se zbiva sa ljudima koji se ne mogu otvoriti tako lako, usprkos njihovoj barem deklarativnoj želji, volji ili iskrenoj namjeri čak. Međutim, ipak podsvijest gospodari čak i takvim vanjskim pozitivnim željama i onemogućava ih ili im pomaže ili tako. Što se u takvim slučajevima događa i koliko je potrebno da neka takva osoba malo, recimo, zatvorenija ista također uspije nadvladati svoje stare navike koje su ugodne kao stare papuče, kao neki stari kaput, teško ih se nekad riješiti.
Yeah. And that's, again, why we started developing clearing techniques or techniques people could do to love themselves more. Okay? The more you can love yourself, the more you believe it. Okay? If you could change the way you felt, if you could be happier, If you could, are people happier in the summer here than in the winter? Well, people are happier when they're outside, or they're sitting in the sun, or they're just being in nature, okay? But every time you can be happier or do things that make you feel better, it will change you. And part of the problem is the people around you do not want you to change. Okay, if you changed and you went home, your relationship would be very upset if they couldn't feel you in the way that you used to be. They would start thinking, oh my gosh, he doesn't love me, or he's doing something else. And so what they'll try to do is re-engage with you in an old way so you'll react so they know you love them. So our personal relationships will always be the greatest challenge for us. But the only thing I can say is the happier you are, the more you feel better, and the more you start realizing you have a choice. Okay? I don't know what the choice is, it's just you have more choices.
Spominjali ste zapravo jednostavnu tehniku, mogli bismo nazvati čak i trikom koliko je jednostavna, kako se vraćati natrag u trenutak sadašnji, kako se to kaže, malo se riješiti tih nekakvih misli iz prošlosti ili briga zbog sutrašnjeg dana i slično. Ona se svodila u stvari na to da se čovjek sjeti nečeg što bi mu, kako bi se to reklo, izmamilo osmijeh ili smiješak na lice, nešto što ga baš razveseli u trenutku kad na to pomisli. Na kakve stvari ste imali u vidu i kako to zapravo funkcionira, što se zbiva onda?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure it's really a trick, but again, if you believe it, then you can call it what you want to, but if you believe it, okay? But just think about this. If I could get you to meditate 5 times a day, your life would change, but we're all too busy. But you could meditate when you went to the toilet. So when you went to the toilet, you just, as you're just releasing the emotion. Being upset, being a phone call you got, or your parents, or whatever it is, you let it go. And then you take back your power inside your tummy. But to keep it there, you need to love yourself. And love yourself is love something you really enjoy. Is it nature? Is it by the sea? Is it playing with your kids? Is it riding your bike? Something that really makes you happy for a couple seconds. I guarantee you in 3 days you'll change. Because here's the answer. How much do you have to love yourself to not be as reactive? So most people would say it's 100%, but it's 1%. If you could love yourself 1% more than you've ever loved, you would start finding it more peaceful. But it takes practice. So the next time you go to the toilet, you clear, you pull your field in, and then you again love yourself in a way that makes you smile or happy, and pretty soon your energy stays in. So my energy's inside. My energy's not out projecting onto others. It's inside me. That's one. The other technique is think of yourself differently than everyone else does. And that was very simple for us when we started looking at Dr. Emoto and what he did with water. You are 75% water. We all 75 to 80% water. So what would happen if you thought of yourself as liquid? Not as a man, not as this, but as liquid. And then you added a color that you love, like this green or whatever color. Then you're liquid light, liquid green light. Well, if you thought of yourself as liquid green light, who would think of you as liquid green light? No one. So what happens, instead of getting overwhelmed by their projection, you sense it, and then you decide whether you want to feel it. So those are 2 techniques, and they're so simple, but I guarantee you they'll have a big effect on you in a very short time.
Spominjete izbjegavanje reaktivnosti, odnosno reagiranja. Činjenica je da, pogotovo u današnjem svijetu, se vrlo često mnoge manipulativne tehnike koriste na način da se pobuđuju emocije kod ljudi i onda se provocira njihova reakcija koja se potom zloupotrebljava u ovu ili onu svrhu. Drugim riječima, izbjegavanje reagiranja koje bi možda u konačnici dovelo do toga da izbjegnemo da emocije postanu upaljači našeg ponašanja, bi dugoročno, rekli bismo, mogli donijeti dosta dobra.
Well, what would happen is if we did the same thing every day together, same argument, we had the same energy, we'd have the same outcome. But what would happen at this time, I recognized, oh gosh, I know what this is about. I'm not going to give it the same energy. I'm not going to say the same thing. What happens? Different outcome. Another choice. And remember, the more choices you have, is usually the happier you are. When things get to where you have no choice, you're usually starting to become very upset. Okay? And what you want to do is, you don't want to get so upset that it starts going inside you and hurts you.
Koliko se godina zapravo bavite iscjeljivanjem, ovom tehnikom Heart and Soul Healing, iscjeljivanje srca i duše?
Well, it first started in about the early 80s. So I don't know what that is, about 25, 30 years, okay? But it's changed as we've changed. The other book, the Heart and Soul Healing book, it took 17 years to write it. Why? Because every time I get a new insight, I'd have to change everything around. And then I kept changing the book as I became aware. Because we think we're aware, and all of a sudden we see something or understand something that... See, I believe you have to be visual, auditory, kinesthetic together. You have to see, feel, hear at once. Then your world becomes richer, or you don't need so much. It's not about having a lot of money, or you just can enjoy life.
Kakvo je vaše iskustvo? Ima li na svijetu više sretnih ljudi ili više tužnih ili više miješanih? Kako na jednoj vagi izgleda odnos sreće na svijetu? S obzirom da su u jednoj jedinoj zemlji tamo malo sjeverno indijskog, na indijskom podkontinentu, jednog dana shvatili da možda ne trebaju računati bruto društveni proizvod, nego količinu subjektivnog osjećaja sreće njenih stanovnika, što naravno se ne može izmjeriti osim nekakvim anketama. Ali eto, vi imali ste priliku na neki način napraviti jednu takvu anketu, ako se to može tako nazvati, u radu sa ljudima.
Well, think about this. If you're in survival, if you have to worry every day if you can feed yourself, if you can feed the kids, if you can have a house, if you have a roof over your head, you're not connected to your higher self or your creative self. Are they happy? No. They're in survival. How many people are in survival in the world? I have to say a couple billion. Okay? How about people who are locked into their work or whatever they're doing, and that's their whole life? Are they happy? Can they allow anything else? So you start looking at that, you start to realize a lot of people are not happy because they feel controlled or trapped or stuck, or they're not connected any longer. Okay? So I would say about 75% of the world is not happy.
Znači, statistike baš nisu dobre.
Well, you just got to look around the world and see how many people, and then not counting about war. See, we think there's 5 things that's affected all of us. In our mother, in their mother, in their mother. Okay. War, if you look at history, it's killed a lot of people, hurt a lot of people. How about sickness? Whoa, lots of people, lots of bad disease. How about hunger? Lots of people. How about disasters? Lots of people. And then how about religion? So one of those things is probably still affecting people today that they can't get out of. It's got them trapped or stuck or limited.
To su naravno veliki valovi, događaji prošlosti i povijesti koje ne možemo tako lako ponekad izbjeći ako se nađemo na krivom mjestu u krivo vrijeme, no ono što svatko sam za sebe može napraviti, po vama bi znači ukratko bilo?
To be happy. To do the things that make them feel good, to play with their kids or take time with their family or take time with yourself, to create, to do something, to dance, to sing, to write, to go out in nature, things that really make their insides feel good. Okay?
Međutim, što ako nemaju vremena za to?
But is that 1 hour, 2 hours a week? Okay, if you don't have 1 or 2 hours for yourself, you are in big trouble, okay? So we all have that. It's just having the energy or having the drive to do that. Okay, and you have to join a group that dances, or you have some people that help you keep being happy. Okay?
Ken, hvala vam i želim vam sreću u daljem radu na kojem god se kontinentu taj rad događao i do neke sljedeće prilike. Doviđenja.
Thank you very much.
Hvala i vama na pažnji, laku noć. Čini se da je možda jedan od ključeva cjelovitosti, sreće, otpuštanje svega što nam više ne služi, prošlih osjećaja, prošlih odnosa, svega što smo bili u prošlosti, briga o izgledu, o tome što će netko misliti o nama, odbacivanje i prosuđivanja sebe i drugih. Kažu neki da tek onda vaši izbori mogu biti zaista vaši, a ne nečiji tuđi. Do tog velikog trenutka kad to tako bude, laku noć.